what is up? My name is Megan. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. I hope you guys are doing well and staying safe, and welcome to today's video, which is a book review for The Secrets of Underhill by Kali Wallace. This is a middle grade fantasy standalone novel, and it released on January 28th, 2025, so yesterday by the time this video has been uploaded. I am here to bring you a video review because I was granted an ARC from NetGalley, so I wanted to share my opinion on it because I did mention it was one of my most anticipated middle grades for 2025. This will be spoiler free, obviously, so let's jump on in. The Secrets of Underhill is a fantasy that is a little bit different than what I usually read. It follows a main character named Nick, who with her mom go around this world and take care of ironwood trees. These trees are very important in this world because they provide magic. They are cut down, and the trees themselves provide magic, and the magic lasts within the wood, and so people transform this wood to create things and make things easier within the population. So our main character goes around and helps with her mother to take care of these trees. So when people call them, they travel in this wagon, which is their home, with their dog, and go and help and like analyze what is going on with trees, why they're sick, if there's like a parasite or something, and then they tell people how to take care of their trees. The story really begins when Nick is on the road with her mom, and they are basically going around because they keep getting calls of this blight that is happening within the trees that is causing so many like concerning magical things. The magic is not as it should, the trees are getting sick, and Nick and her mom have been traveling for like over a year by the time like we jump into the story, and have not found what it is that is making the trees sick. And so our characters are kind of trying to figure out what happens, and they end up at Underhill, which is like the center of the ironwood. There's the ironwood grove, and they're like being called there. I'm not going to tell you why. So they travel back to Underhill where Nick's mom has been raised, but Nick has never been to. And so Nick arrives there, meets her family, and gets to experience like the core of the magic of the world and the trees. And there's a mystery element behind it, and it all kind of spirals from there. Now, this story is much more than a fantasy story in of itself. This is a story that tackles a lot of societal issues, namely environment. The story really talks about people trying to make these trees grow too fast, cutting them when they're too young because people just want more magic. And so there's all these discussions on caring for trees and like not using the environment for the sake of just needing and wanting more, consuming more. And so there's all the themes of environment which are talked about in this book. This book also talks about racism and disabilities and all of these things, because at the core of Underhill there are people who live like under, they're called like the people of Underhill, and these people have kind of like genetic mutations from living underground, which can affect their skin, which affect a lot of different things. Like, they're not sick, their appearance is just different. But a lot of people talk about these people negatively. They are poorly treated. The other people of Underhill and the company who runs and cares for the trees is trying to kick them out of their home, and they call them like things like worms, and it's just like a lot for these people. And obviously it's a very much like direct translation of racism and also like kicking people out of their lands. And so there's all these discussions within the fantasy story. It talks about inequality, discrimination, and it's just a whole thing within the story itself. This story is also kind of a genre blend between mystery and fantasy, because throughout this we're trying to find what exactly is happening to this blight. So the fantasy element really happens within the world itself and the magical system, and then the mystery is what kind of strings along the plot of the story. And it didn't feel super fantasy-esque. It's more so like the trees are magic, but otherwise it felt very much just like if our world had magic trees, you know what I mean? So it's not the most like extreme fantasy in middle grade form. It's just there's a sprinkle of fantasy with a sprinkle of mystery, and it kind of feels like a contemporary novel as well. So that's kind of like the recap of what the book is about without spoiling anything from the actual story. Overall, I really enjoyed this book. If I were to give it a rating, I would most likely give it a 3.75 out of 5 stars. Keeping in mind that I am not the target audience for middle grade books, but it is my perspective as an adult reader. Some of the strongest points of this story for me were the characters and the world building. I think that the writing of the world was very immersive, and I could easily picture the trees we are talking about, the blight that was happening to them, and just like the magnitude and the feeling of being so impressed by nature itself is so beautifully captured within this story. I also think that the writing is very enjoyable both for middle grade readers, but also for adult readers. I felt like it was a very lush and beautiful writing without being overly descriptive, and I really enjoyed that part of the story. I also think that the characters had a lot of charm to them. I really loved our main character because she embodies a lot of the values that I have as a person and as a social worker, and it was really enjoyable to be able to discover this world through her eyes and for us to be able to witness what it's like for a young child to realize that there are such things as inequalities and that not everybody is treated the same. And I loved the growth that our character has when she comes to that realization. I think that both the main characters and side characters were all fleshed out. In this, we follow Nick, but we also have her cousin who she meets for the first time, who kind of shows her what the world of Underhill is, and they go on all these adventures together. I could feel the familial bonds of meeting your family for the first time and all the history that Nick had no idea about, and how that kind of resurfaced with them going back to Underhill, and just all the bonds made sense. I love the dog as a side character. He's not super heavily involved, but it was still enough that it made sense to include a dog. And Nick as a character felt very realistic for her age. I feel like her flaws and the choices she made in hopes of bettering the situation and also in hopes of figuring out what exactly that blight was perfectly executed. I felt it was a very realistic portrayal of a main character in that certain situation. My main issue with the book is the pacing. I think this book was kind of all over the place when it comes to pacing, in the sense that the first 15% I really loved. I loved meeting Nick. I loved seeing her mom, them traveling, experiencing what it's like to live in that wagon, what it's like to travel with them interacting with people and telling them about the trees and learning about them at the same time was fantastic. From the 15% mark to what I would say is the 40 to 50%, I was a little bit underwhelmed. We are traveling to Underhill for a portion of this, and I thought it was a little bit long. And I would put my Kindle down. It would take me going back to bed and having nothing else to do to pick that up. But once we hit the 50% mark all the way to the end of the book, I thought it was phenomenal. Overall, it was really enjoyable. I just think the pacing was a little bit up and down. Some moments we could have probably not skipped over, but I feel could have been done differently. But again, I'm not a writer, so it's just my experience as a reader, but I had a lot of fun with it. I do also think that and this is a me issue, not a book issue, I was expecting something with a little bit more fantasy within it. I thought we would have a little bit more whimsy. Though the magic was explored, I am just such a middle grade fantasy reader. When I think fantasy, I think Amari and the Night Brothers, I think Nevermore, I think the Mystic School of Musicraft, where the magic is even more involved within the story. But this is not that, and it's just a deconstruction that I had to do within myself. It's not the book, and it's not the way it's necessarily marketed, and I just wanted to let you guys know that, because usually the middle grade I talk about on my channel that is fantasy is more heavily fantastical than this one is. This is very much a genre blend, as I did mention. I think I would recommend this book to contemporary readers that are looking to get into fantasy, or readers who enjoy stories with the themes of environment, discrimination, racism, inequality, all of those things. If you have children who you're trying to teach these values and these world issues to, I highly recommend this book. And just for anyone who wants a fun, cozy, good time, I was not stressed out reading this book. It was a fun time. I had like a nature ambiance playing while reading this, and I feel like it really set the mood. It was a great story. I had a lot of fun, and I think that like the characters again and the world building were phenomenal. So if that's what you're primarily looking for in a book, again, highly recommend this one. So that is my review for The Secrets of Underhill. 3.75 out of 5 is an excellent rating, and I am looking forward to picking up more books by this author because I know this is not a debut novel. I believe this author has backlists, so I will definitely be going back and checking out what her other books are because I'm definitely down to read from her again. If you've made it this far in the video, leave me a tree emoji, and if you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know as well, and I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye guys, happy reading!